welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. And of course, we are streaming live on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post. That's facebook.com/Activist Post. Well, it's Monday morning, 10 a.m., and we are coming to you live from sweltering, but still fabulous, Las Vegas, Nevada. We got a great show for you today. Our guest, I'm super excited about this one. Our guest today is Erik Voorhees, CEO of Shapeshift.io. For those of you who are in the cryptocurrency world and have been there for a while, if you've moved between currencies, you have probably used Shapeshift at some point. It's a very, very useful service, perhaps one of the most useful services and most innovative services in the space. He's going to talk to us. He's also quite the libertarian in terms of his ideology and his philosophy. So he's going to talk to us about not just the business side, but also the philosophical side, what brought him into the world of cryptocurrency and the blockchain. Really looking forward. Brilliant guy. So I'm looking forward to having him on the show. Also, we've got some stories, great stories. Story about net neutrality today. I want to talk about this extinction story that came out saying that the world is going through like the 6th extinction event, and we're going to talk about how real that is and what the motivations behind that truly are. And then we've got, of course, a little bit of news about the media. To help us go through all of that is, as always, my good friend, co-host, and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian,
Thank you, Vin. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's it's sweltering hot.
Yeah, it is.
It's sweltering hot, but some people were talking about. I kept seeing comments about Vin pulling out the paper towel, wiping his head, and I was like, that is not very high class, and I'm a high class individual, so handkerchiefs.
Nice.
Handkerchiefs,
yeah.
right? So doing this, and then I got you. Handkerchief.
Yep.
See, so now people can comment on our handkerchiefs. Maybe we'll do some custom things. So that's going to be much better, and I'm going to feel much better about wiping my head than I would with patting it down with a paper towel. So we've got Erik Voorhees today.
Yeah.
I think it's really great and appropriate that obviously we plan these interviews weeks in advance, but this time with obviously Bitcoin and this massive drop in price, the massive drop in price against where it was, but still, people want to say, oh, well, if you've had it for the last year, you've had 180% increase. But it's like, yeah, but if you look at the market cap, if you look at the actual amount of US dollars that are in the cryptocurrency space, most of these people who are dipping out now didn't have their money in a year ago.
Right.
But we're not talking about those people. We're talking about a psychology. How does an idea enter into sort of the zeitgeist? And then what happens as it plays around in a free market, right?
Right.
We did the show a few weeks ago where we talked about Tulip Mania, talked about a bubble, I talked about the gambling, I talked about all of that. Little Vinstradamus.
Go back and see that one.
It's just a few weeks ago, man. It's not that far away.
That changed my whole perspective, too.
So this is, the thing is, this is all very predictable. This is how markets work. This is how free markets work. And it's also why studying economics, or at least getting a handle on economics, I particularly like Austrian economics because it's not a lot of numbers,
right? And
it's more psychological, right? Which makes sense coming from an Austrian, von Mises, coming from an Austrian, who obviously, Freud was an Austrian, you know what I mean? These are the thoughts, the psychology of like, how does human action work? How do human beings move through the world? What are these archetypes like Jung, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what's playing out. And the study of economics is interesting when you look at it in that vein. And so that's why it's important to see what could this possibly be. I can't wait to talk to Erik Voorhees about this because we get to talk to somebody who saw the promise of cryptocurrency and saw the promise of Bitcoin enough such that he made his entire life about this new technology at a time when the vast majority of people knew nothing about it, were not thinking about it, did not think it was valuable. And to be honest, and I'll let him know this as well, to be honest, when Shapeshift.io first sort of came out, I was like, what's even the purpose of this? Like
Yeah.
switching between currencies, why would anybody need anything other than Bitcoin? Right? This dude's been way ahead. So I'm really interested to hear his thoughts. People are looking so short term. And you know, one of the things that if we go back to that episode, one of the things that I said, if you want to make money at this, create something of value in the space.
Learn how
Don't
to
worry
use
about
it.
speculating. Because you know, the thing with Shapeshift is, so they'll exchange if you want to change Bitcoin into Ethereum, it's a very easy process. You don't need to sign up. They handle it all. You give them an Ethereum address you want it sent to. You give them a Bitcoin refund address just in case things go wrong. They give you an address. You scan it. You send your Bitcoin. It sends straight to your Ethereum address. Very easy, super simple. And they charge a fee on top of that. So all he cares about is the spot price at that minute. He makes money on the transfer regardless of if Bitcoin is at 6 cents or $60,000. Right? He's making that 8% or 10% or whatever the hell it is that they're charging. He makes the money on the spot price. That's how you make money. That's how you make money. Not speculating that, oh, maybe it'll go up. That's gambling.
Right.
Right? But adding value, that's actually making money. Right?
Yep. I was watching some of his stuff last night, and the way that he broke down why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is different was very fascinating.
His blog is called Money and State. We'll have, during his interview, we'll have the link to that up. And he's advocated for the separation of money and state. So there's a lot of philosophy there. I know that there are some people watching right now who want me to ask some very sort of technical questions and some speculative questions about the markets. That's probably not what we're going to get into today, because I think his message from an ideological and philosophical standpoint is something that we don't get to hear enough of. And when someone has, I think it's important when someone has gone all in on something, you know, we lose that thought, right? We lose that, I don't know why people don't have that curiosity. There's this interview of Steve Jobs. I think it's on Netflix. I think that's where I saw it. It's called Steve Jobs, the Lost Interview or something like that. It's when he had been fired from Apple and had started his new company Next, which after he went back to Apple, a lot of that technology is now in the Mac platform and helped it to grow. And it's like 2 hours long, and it's just all about, the beginning in particular is all about why he became so convinced early on that he was moving down the right path. And it's just fascinating. And so, you know, when you get a chance to talk to somebody who's gone all in on something, who's a smart individual, you know, you should sit and you should ask them, like, why? How did you fall in love with this thing that other people didn't see, that you went all in? Like, you can gain some knowledge there. So
absolutely.
That's going to be great. We're going to talk with him about that. The stories that we have, I want to dig into this first one. It's about net neutrality. I think maybe the best way for us to do this is to just jump right in with how this story is being reported in the mainstream media. Let's just hit this news number one here.
The best way to understand net neutrality is to think of the internet as a sort of congested superhighway, with most of the fast lanes taken up by big fat trucks carrying content like Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu. In 2015, the Obama administration ruled those big companies cannot pay to dominate the fast lanes. Everyone from e-commerce giants to mom-and-pop websites must be treated equally.
Without these regulations, one website could make sure that that their content is reaching consumers faster than others, which again ultimately would result in less choice for the consumer.
But the White House and the nation's internet service providers, or ISPs, like NBC parent company Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, Cox, and others, argued the rule stifles competition and creativity. Now the FCC is planning to roll back the rule.
One of the things we don't want to put on the table is the FCC micromanaging the business practices of private companies.
Democrats object. And the Internet Association, which represents many of the giants, says scrapping net neutrality will only hurt consumers by allowing ISPs to throttle speed, saying in a statement, robust net neutrality rules benefit all players in the ecosystem by attracting more people to the web and increasing demand for Internet connections. Tonight, the nation's Internet service providers say they will not interfere with, block, or throttle Internet traffic. But many consumer advocates worry the biggest players could soon pay to speed through the fast lane, while many smaller players are stuck in the slow lane.
Okay, I want you to just really, that's so confusing. You notice that they're presenting this as, if we scrap net neutrality, the big players could pay to be in the fast lane. That's what he just ended with, and that's what they started with. But then he also, in the story you see, the big players are for net neutrality. So he's saying that the big players are wanting to pay to get to have a bigger chunk of basically all of the available bandwidth. But the big players are on the other side of that issue, so that's not actually their motivation. The big players are going for net neutrality, which the Obama administration... See, this is a very confusing issue. We're going to take it 2 steps. I'm going to give you the NBC story, and then I'm going to give you the story from the Foundation for Economic Education, from that side, a little more of a libertarian free market view. And then we're going to just break this one down. We're going to work our way through it, principle and preference, because, again, it's confusing. But like we always say, once you get the principle in there, it becomes really obvious what's going on. So let's do this. Go ahead. Let's go NBC on this. This is from NBC News. Big websites protest rollback of net neutrality restrictions on internet service providers. Google, Facebook, Netflix, Twitter, and 80,000 other top websites and organizations have joined together for a day of action to protest a retreat from the concept of net neutrality. They are angry that the Trump administration wants to roll back regulations requiring internet service providers to treat all data and customers equally online. And the companies are encouraging consumers to give their feedback on the Federal Communications Commission's website. The critical issue is whether the internet be an all-you-can-eat buffet of information, videos, and lolcat memes, or an a la carte menu. Should internet providers be allowed to strike deals to deliver some kinds of content, such as their own, or those partners have paid them for, at a faster speed? Should the internet be more like cable, where you subscribe to a package of sports, entertainment, and news websites? No, said millions of consumers the last time the FCC took public comment. Over 4 million consumers lodged their comments. Internet service providers and cable companies argue that the Obama-era regulations enacted in 2015 intended to protect net neutrality are the wrong approach and that a light touch is preferred. Quote, the internet has succeeded up until this point because it has been free to grow, innovate, and change largely free from government oversight, quote, unquote, wrote NCTA, the Internet and Television Association, the primary broadband and cable industry trade group, in its statement on net neutrality. Comcast, the parent company of NBC News, belongs to the NCTA. The statement proposes scrapping the regulations which treat broadband like a common carrier required to transport passengers of data at the same rate with a different set of rules. The NCTA said its proposal empowers the internet industry to continue to innovate without putting handcuffs on its most pioneering companies. So, Christian, basic breakdown. Net neutrality is a set of rules put in by the Obama administration that says you can't pick and choose data. Which data is going to move faster or slower? You just have to be basically a pipe. Now, you can throttle the pipe, right? So you can offer different overall data speeds, right? Like we pay extra here so we can have the kick-ass upload so that we can do, Twitter and Periscope
right.
and YouTube and all of that all at the same time, right? And we get kick-ass download too. And now with people using more of Netflix and Hulu and Amazon to stream, people are paying for those higher packages. Yep. What net neutrality says is, okay, you can throttle, but where you can't throttle is you can't throttle at the level of, for instance, Amazon can't pay more so that their packages go faster. Netflix can't pay more, right? You can charge the end consumer but you can't charge Netflix, Facebook, Google, Hulu.
Okay.
Right? Now, that is good for Netflix. It's good for the consumer, clearly.
Yeah.
It's good for Netflix, Hulu, and all of them. And we'll talk about why this is being pushed in a minute. So now that we've got the basic idea, let's see from a free market standpoint what the opinion on this is. Because this one is not so simple.
Yeah.
Right? Because in this case, this is a lot like the legalization of drugs issue when you talk about principle and preferences, right?
Okay.
Because our preference is, I want my internet, I want the speed, I want the fastest speed to every single place that I'm paying for the internet.
Yep.
But that is being facilitated by government regulation. It's government regulation that's doing that. It's not the free market. So let's see what the free market side says about this. This is from the Foundation for Economic Education. Net neutrality is about government control of the internet. The fight over the privacy rules passed by the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, is the latest brawl between advocates of a free and largely unregulated internet and the net neutrality activist ideologues who see the internet as something that should be nationalized and publicly owned and regulated. In March, Congress voted 215 to 205 to eliminate the internet privacy rules passed by the FCC under former Chairman Tom Wheeler. The Senate had already voted the same way. President Trump signed the legislation into law in April. The vote in Congress was predictably condemned by ideologues opining in the Washington Post, CNN, and other news outlets on how the vote entirely destroys our privacy rights on the internet. But repealing the draconian FCC privacy rules before they were set to take effect later this year will not put our privacy rights in any danger at all. There are more than enough federal and state protections in place. We're fine without it. Thanks. Internet privacy has been protected quite well for almost 20 years by rules from the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. When the FCC enacted the new privacy rules, the FTC opposed them as unnecessary. Surely when the FTC says new rules would hurt consumers and weaken consumer protections, those rules should be seriously questioned. Without the FCC privacy rules, the FTC remains active in protecting consumer privacy on the internet. The privacy and net neutrality rules passed in the FCC in 2015 were part of a larger effort under the Obama administration to regulate the internet as if it were a public utility, much like the old Ma Bell phone monopoly. Ironically, the very development and growth of the internet would not have been possible were it not for the deregulation and breaking up of the old phone monopoly. Current FCC Chairman Ajit Pai pointed out that the elimination of the FCC internet regulations will not harm consumers or the public interest because they were never needed. Justification for the regulations were, quote, phantoms that were conjured up by the people who wanted the FCC for political reasons to over-regulate the internet. He told Nick Gillespie of Reason, quote, we were not living in a digital dystopia in the years leading up to 2015. Pai also pointed out how Google and Facebook have succeeded in an internet free of government micromanagement, where content providers and others are free to innovate and offer consumers the services and content they demand. Okay, let's walk this through. The argument from the FCC side, the Trump administration, the free market side, is we don't need these rules. We don't need net neutrality rules. Let the free market operate. You know I'm a free market guy.
Yep.
You know I believe in free markets. However, there's a problem. So, and I'll illustrate it very concretely. We have cable internet here. Now, why did we have to get the cable internet? Do you remember why it had to be cable and not DSL? Because we have a DSL connection in there.
I don't
You remember why?
No.
Speed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Remember, we couldn't get the speed that we needed because we were too far out here for
Right.
the DSL. The DSL didn't have that speed. It was CenturyLink, right?
Yeah.
Did not have the speed. We had to get cable. How many options for cable did we have? One. One. Why do we only have one cable option? Because cable is a functional monopoly based on FCC rules. The FCC determines who gets a cable monopoly in a particular area. Okay. We're already not in a free market.
Yeah.
Okay? If you have a monopoly, and then if you're going to create a government monopoly, And then you're going to take all of the regulations off of the government monopoly. That basically the only regulation is no one else gets to compete with them. That is fascism. That's the definition of fascism. So you wonder why, if, as they say, if as NBC says, now mind you, NBC's parent company is Comcast. NBC's parent company is a cable monopoly. Reporting on this, NBC says, well, Netflix and Google and Hulu, they want to pay so that they're the only ones who could go through. They want to pay. They want to pay Comcast. Really? Why are they lobbying on the other side then? Why are they lobbying on the side to keep the regulations? The reason why is, here you have these guys, and look, it's just the market behaving as the market. This is where the principle starts to come in. If you create a monopoly, a state-created monopoly, they don't want their hands tied. If I'm a monopoly, I want to squeeze the consumers and the vendors.
Yeah.
Right? Walmart, prime example. They're not a monopoly, but for many, many years they were a functional monopoly in many areas of the United States. Rural areas, basically the only place that people could go to buy the things that they needed, Walmart. A lot of people don't know this about Walmart. Walmart has in their headquarters a huge section and a giant staff where if you want to sell something, if you're a supplier, you go in, you have to have this huge stack of information. And you go in, they take you into a room, and they have these representatives from Walmart. First, it's hard to even get an appointment. Then you have to walk down this long hallway. You go into these rooms. They leave you sitting there for a half hour. Then someone comes in, and then they're like, show me the prices. And then they're like, that's got to be 80% less. That's got to be 70% less. That's got to be, right? Why? Because they have a functional monopoly. They can control the prices. They can make these people pay a premium to get into the Walmart stores. So what do these guys want to do? They want to shake down Amazon. It's not that they want to pay, they want that Amazon wants to pay, or Hulu wants to pay, or Netflix wants to pay. Netflix is getting through just fine right now. No, what they're going to say is, if you don't pay Netflix, if you don't pay Hulu, because that's what happens with the cable companies and the premium channels, for instance, where or Viacom has these issues. You know, I think it was Viacom and Comcast that got into it to the point where like all the Viacom channels were gone for a little while off Comcast, like no Comedy Central and all these other, no MTV. So this is what it's all about, right? So what is the principle, okay? The principle is, should government be able to tell a private business whether or not it can participate in a market? And should the government control competition, or should competition be controlled by the free market? If you say competition should be controlled by the free market, well then the cable monopolies are unprincipled. If you go down the unprincipled path, you're already down that path. You're already down that path. So now it's just like they created some tigers, and they put the tigers in a cage. That's net neutrality. Like there are a lot of people who think, oh no, it's gonna be fine if you release this. No, it's not gonna be fine. But, and here this part goes to the crypto savage. This is how, from a standpoint of crypto savagery, how one can look at this. Just like with Bitcoin, just like with other cryptocurrencies, with Ethereum, I'm very glad right now that the price of all of these is falling. I'm very glad. I said it in that earlier episode. I said shoeshine boys, right? That was the term I was using. It goes back to this Joe Kennedy story. People can Google Joe Kennedy shoeshine boy. You'll see the story that I'm talking about, or go back and watch the episode. All these people are getting out. I think it's great. maybe we won't have the huge ICO. Oh my God. There's this ICObazaar.com where they basically have a listing of all the new ICOs, the dumbest fucking things, like dumber than anything on Kickstarter. And some of these things are getting millions of dollars because people are just, it's tulip mania. They're cryptocurrency crazy. Right? But maybe the price is going out of this. Maybe people losing their shirt is the best possible fucking thing that could happen, right? Because then they don't do these ICOs. But what is a cryptocurrency for? It's about not asking permission. So I'm like, okay, release the net neutrality rules. What would be a good initial coin offering? And what is the purpose of an ICO? The idea behind an ICO is you can invest in something anonymously, receive a dividend. No one knows that you ever invested. No one knows who you are. Even the company doesn't know that you're an investor. It's completely free and clear. You never have to pay any taxes on it. So what's a great ICO? They go up with the net neutrality. They take it away. People's internet gets shitty in ways that because they're taking away something that people are used to. You either got to pay more for Netflix. You got to pay more for Hulu. You got all this as you're already paying for Netflix. You're already paying for your fucking cable internet. Now you got to pay more for the streaming. So somebody says, you know what, fuck it. I need $23 million. I've got this wireless mesh network. Here are all the videos of it working. It's working in this small area, maybe 20 blocks. It works great. People love it. I need $23 million to launch it in this city. If you'll get involved in this ICO, everybody that pays for their service on this, and they can only pay in, say, Ethereum or Bitcoin, every single person that pays, you're going to get a dividend. Every time somebody logs on, like they log on to, hotel internet or whatever, and it's like buy a week's worth, buy a day's worth, whatever. Everybody that logs on and pays their monthly in Ethereum, and they get all this access, you're going to get, since you invested, it's automatically going to go to a smart contract, and it's going to disperse money to you every single day. It's just going to stream money in. Every single time somebody pays, boom, it's going to go to you. That's what this whole thing is for. It's the ability for us as crypto savages to invest in the revolution.
Yeah.
It's the ability for us to change the world with our dollars and do it anonymously without fear of reprisal from the government and to get rich doing it.
Awesome. So the drop in the crypto space is actually filtering out those that just want the golden ticket, so to speak.
Yeah, so before the show, I was saying there's this, and Jeffrey Hammerbacher is the name of the guy. He engineered Facebook's initial sort of database structure. Well, a lot of it is still being used. He's a genius, right? Then he went on to found Cloudera, which is a big cloud services company. Very good at imagining these abstract networks and connecting networks and making things very fast and sharding data and all of these very technical things. He's got a great quote. He said, he was in an interview with Fast Company, and he said, "The greatest minds of my generation spend their days thinking about how to make people click on ads. That sucks."
Yeah, seriously.
Right? That was his quote. That sucks. And what we have in the crypto space, because it's been volatile, because we've had this rise, the greatest minds in the crypto space are thinking about how to make some money off of these newbie speculators. They're not thinking about creating the types of solutions that our guest, Erik Voorhees, has created throughout his career. Things that actually provide value. The people who are thinking about, who are creating these ICOs, because there's easy money, and I saw this when I was a part of the tech boom. The best thing that happened to the internet was the tech bust. Because when the money was no longer easy to get, you actually had to come up with a business that fucking worked, that provided some real value. And you know what? You probably had to fund it yourself to start, to get it off the ground and get it actually working. And it was little funding rounds, like companies like Y Combinator came along that became these incubators where it was like, we'll give you $20,000 and let you come and stay out here. See what you can put together. Sit down with our team. We'll mentor you. We'll help you. And then if it grows, you give us 50%. We take, you take 50%, whatever. That's where this space can go. But you have to have the boom first.
Yeah.
To get people starting to think about it. And then you got to have a lot of people lose money. You have to get a lot of people cautious. People have to be cautious about their money.
I remember you talking about this. It happened in Vegas too with the downtown project.
Absolutely, man. I mean, well, Tony Hsieh in the downtown project, I mean, he created a bubble.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing, and he created a real estate bubble. This is the natural business cycle. This is something that Ludwig von Mises, Murray Rothbard, Friedrich Hayek, all of these guys, they wrote about this, man. They talked about this ad nauseum, that this is the business cycle. This is just the psychology of human beings. When you get them together, this is just how markets work. And if you think about it, it is a macrocosm of how our individual, that's what's so great. It's how our individual consciousnesses act about certain things, right? Isn't it? So it's like, when you first, look, I mean, we've both pursued things that are difficult to master, but are interesting. Like, I think the prime example, certainly for you, has got to be the b-boying, right? The breakdancing.
Yeah.
To where, but look at how that is. It's like, you see it, you find it interesting, you're super interested in it, and initially it's like, oh, little thing, and then you reach this point.
Yep.
And this is the point where it's like you start failing, right? Where you can't do that next move. You can't get it mastered. You're feeling like, oh, fuck this. And 90% of people, boom, sharp drop off. They sell.
Right. Oh, man, this is great.
Right?
Yeah.
They sell. But the people who hold, you realize, no, you're going to go down. You're going to go down, man.
And this is the point that we're at with cryptocurrency.
Yes.
And what will determine the people that are valuable
Yes.
is when you get to that point, you can't stop. You can't look outward. You have to look inside
That's
to
it.
create the value.
That's it. And for me, I've been hoping that the price of Bitcoin would go down, that the overall volume of transactions would go down. I've been developing, and I've got this. It's interesting because I had been writing my book while this price had been going crazy, and I've been like, fuck, when I get done with this book, my plan was, and now that's what I'm doing at the end of this month, is that my plan is to start working again on this hardware prototype that I basically have working. It takes Bitcoin payments and then it'll do something
awesome.
with hardware. It's really cool, right? I initially built it to tip strippers, but now I'm moving it to be able to do like restaurant tickets, you know what I mean, to be able to pay right there as they bring out your check. You could, put your credit card, put your cash, or just pay with Bitcoin that's actually built into the actual checkbook itself. But I was like, Bitcoin, it's with $1.50 to $3 transaction fees, I'm going to have to move this thing over to Ethereum.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I've actually gotten some, I think yesterday I put through a Bitcoin transaction. It was like 20-cent mining fee.
Wow.
And it confirmed pretty quick. I was like, oh shit, like Bitcoin's back. But it's because the price is falling off. The overall volume's dropping. Like, yes, we need it down. We need it down so we can actually work with it, so we can actually create some solutions. I mean, we were talking about the fact that you've got what it's been as, I think it's at $70 billion is the market cap, right? The amount of US dollars that are involved in cryptocurrency. I think at one point it was 110 billion. So a lot has fallen out. But it's like, okay, so there's $110 billion in cryptocurrency and there's no major point of sale company.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, why is Square not integrating Bitcoin into their offering?
Seriously.
Or spawning off a company. I was saying there's this sushi burrito spot. Those are big now, right? There's one over on Sahara as you're sort of heading towards the SLS. Always packed. Soho Sushi Burrito, super good, man. If you ever come to Vegas, man, go to Soho Sushi Burrito. It's awesome. But it's a little spot. But they've got like 6 iPad minis.
Right.
One's for delivery.com, one's for Grubhub, one's for what Uber Eats, one's their main, thing. And I'm like, they would so do a Bitcoin one right away and take Bitcoin. Super hip, super young crowd. They would totally do it. Where's the company?
Well, this is a void in the
Because
marketplace.
everybody's concerned about the speculation. They're not trying to create real solutions.
Yeah. Yep. It's interesting because I've seen this in work with a company, network marketing company, and one of the most common things is everybody's looking for the next big star.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like the guy that you sign up is going to be the golden ticket.
Right.
And it's kind of like that with Bitcoin too. It's like, oh, it's going to go to 10,000, right? But actually, the person that you're looking for is you.
That's
you
right.
just need to get the skills and learn the art.
That's right. I mean, it's funny that it's like, okay, yes, let's say it does go to 10,000. Let's say it does go to 10,000, right? Wouldn't you so then shouldn't you be thinking about creating a product that you can sell in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Rather than thinking about taking
Exactly.
all of your cash and buying Bitcoin, shouldn't you be thinking about, well, what's the best way for me to get some Bitcoin? Well, maybe I need to develop a product and or service that I can sell or offer and receive Bitcoin in return. Like maybe I should be taking my paycheck in Bitcoin. Right? Instead of taking maybe I should really be thinking about that. And are there businesses that are paying people in Bitcoin? Like, that's the place to start, because maybe to go and work, even if you work, you think about it, right? You go and you work at even the most low-level, entry-level job at a business that has decided we pay all of our employees in cryptocurrency. I know there are a few. We'll talk with Erik about it. He may be paying some of his employees or contractors in Bitcoin. Even if you go in at a very low level, right? Let's say you really do believe Bitcoin's going to 10,000. Well, in order for it to go to 10,000, that means that the market penetration is going to be extreme, right? So that's like you going and getting in at an entry level at fucking Apple when it's in Steve Jobs' garage.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
That's a lot better than going and saying, oh, well, I'm going to buy that Apple One computer. Like that. It's about
Exactly.
shifting your mind, because you also contribute. Because then when you just purchase it, you don't contribute to moving it forward. Never mind going out. There was a tweet recently from a guy, I think you saw it as well, who was like, I'm going to go and learn JavaScript now so that I can learn Solidity. And then he was like, do you have any advice? And people were like, hey, do you hear these 5 books? And he's like, I started chapter 1 last night. That dude's going to be rich.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because whether or not he ever does anything in Solidity, as I say, you can't be broke with a pocket full of diamonds.
Yeah.
He just fucking learned JavaScript.
Shit. He actually hyped me up too. I was like, I want to go learn it.
Just learning JavaScript is gonna get you a six-figure job with full benefits. I have not worked a development gig in 7 years, like a salaried development gig. Of course, I've been developing my own stuff on the side, but a salaried development gig, 9 to 5, where I went in. So that means that my resume that's out there, that anybody would have access to, recruiters or whatever, is 7 years old.
Shit.
Every week. The most recent one was 2 days ago.
Wow.
I got a recruiter saying, hey, ran across your resume, thought you'd be great for this job, opened it up, 125K to 150K is what they're offering.
Shit.
This is every week, and I haven't worked a gig in 7 years. When I was actively working, if I wanted to switch companies, I could have 10 interviews lined up within a week. And I'd have one of those within 3.
Crazy.
So it's like pocket full of diamonds, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're motivated by this whole thing to say, ooh, this is going somewhere, I'm going to learn JavaScript, so I'm going to learn Solidity. Well, now you know JavaScript, now you know Solidity. Whether you didn't have to, you're going to make money off cryptocurrency now, and you never had to buy any. Believe me, there are plenty of developers in the crypto space, plenty of developers working for companies in the crypto space who own next to no cryptocurrency. Believe me, who are getting paid every day to work in that space.
Yep.
That's how it works, man. That's how it works. Okay. We've got, well, what do we got? Okay. 20 minutes. I want to talk about, because this is also very good in terms of looking through preferences and principles, but also it's our weekly dose of collectivism. So let's do this. It is really hot in here. But you like my handkerchief. It's much classier, much classier. Let's do this. Let's do the second news story about this extinction thing that came up. Very, very weird. So we talk a lot about collectivism on this show, and the idea with collectivism is, the basic definition is collectivism as versus individualism. As collectivism places the collective ahead of the individual. Now, the interesting thing about the collective, the idea behind the collective, and we talked about this with G. Edward Griffin. If you want to go back and check out that show just a few weeks ago, it was an excellent show. The collective is really, it's a fictitious entity. So that could be anything from the proletariat to the people to the poor to minorities to women, as though every individual within that group has the same self-interest. Now, some of them are actually like groups of people that were like, yes, there actually are minorities. Yes, there actually are immigrants. And some collectivist ideas, particularly the environment, are super subjective, relativistic fictions. What is the environment? How do you save the environment? What environment? The environment in this room? The environment in this state? Does the environment extend down into the ground? What is the environment? We are all living in an environment at any given time, and that environment changes. So environmentalism tends to get quite collectivist, and as a result, quite cultish. This was very interesting that I saw this week, and I want to address it. This is from The Independent. The world is facing a biological annihilation of species, researchers warn. The world is experiencing a, quote, biological annihilation of its animal species because of humans' effect on the earth. The earth, this is a collectivist term, a new study has found. Researchers mapped 27,600 species of birds, amphibians, mammals, and reptiles, nearly half of known terrestrial vertebrate species, and concluded the planet's sixth mass extinction even was much worse than previously thought. They found the number of individual animals that once lived alongside humans had now fallen by as much as 50%, according to a paper in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The study's authors, Rodolfo Dirzo and Paul Ehrlich from the Stanford Woods Institute for the Environment and Gerardo Ceballos of the National Autonomous University of Mexico, said this amounted to, quote, a massive erosion of the greatest biological diversity in the history of the Earth. So, Christian, let's talk about what they did here. Researchers mapped nearly half of known terrestrial vertebrate species and found the number of individual animals that once lived alongside humans had now fallen by as much as 50%. Okay. So, you pick and choose species, individual species, the terrestrial vertebrates. So we're not even saying like it wasn't plants, these are species they are birds, amphibians, mammals, and reptiles. They're species that live on land. They're species that have a spine. Okay? These are not insects. These are not spiders, right? These are vertebrate species. They picked some. And then they looked at their populations and they said, well, the populations of these species are declining. There's a great mass extinction happening. But they only picked half. And I can tell you some species that they did not include. they did not include, I can guarantee you they did not include, because they said the individual animals that had once lived alongside humans. So also these are animals living within a certain distance of humans, had fallen by 50%. Let's see which vertebrates they didn't pick. How about dogs, cats, cows, pigeons, crows, chickens, turkeys, pigs, sheep, goats, all the animals that humans have increased the number of.
Yeah.
See, because the total vertebrate biomass is way bigger, is way more. There's way more animals on the earth. The total biomass of vertebrate animals on the earth. Human beings, we breed animals in a way that nature doesn't. We put these animals here because we eat them.
Yeah.
We eat them. So this is one of those studies where it's like, yeah, you know what? If you're going to fucking pick and choose, and you're like, yeah, and specifically lions were in here, elephants, and it's like, lions, there used to be way more lions around humans, and now they're going extinct. And it's like, yo, maybe the reason why is that you can't have hungry lions and 5-year-old humans within like a close distance of each other. How about that doesn't work? Or hungry lions and your flock of sheep. You gotta choose. Part of agriculture is you have to choose winners and losers. And if you've got cows that you're trying to grow, and a family that you're trying to see your children live to become adults, a lion in your fucking backyard is not gonna work. So yeah, as humans expand into territory where there used to be lions, where there used to be elephants, guess what? Those lions don't get to live there anymore. That means if you want lions to roam free in this area that we are in right now, you and I don't get to roam free in this area. Because we don't win that fucking fight.
Seriously.
We don't win that. We don't get to have our studio here if a pack of wolves gets to roam free here. We don't get to have it. Never mind have cows, never mind have sheep. That's just lion food. Sheep? Wolves? For wolves and sheep? Come on. But this is the fucking narrative.
Jesus.
We're destroying the earth. We're destroying the earth. It's like we're fucking living on the earth. We're living on the earth. Like, you don't get to pick and choose. If you took 100% of the species, vertebrate terrestrial species, 100%, but you viewed them as individual animals, and you said, are there more or less animals total as a head count on the earth now or before humans started with agriculture? Dude, now. We are life-creating creatures. We just don't like to eat every animal. We like to eat some animals. And those are the animals that we grow. Just like the plants. We don't like to eat every plant. If you're going to measure the plant species, and it's like, you see that cornfield out there? There's only one species. When it was a wild field, there were 67 species of different plants. Now there's only one species. Yeah, motherfucker, because we don't like to eat the other 60.
Shit.
I didn't spend all this fucking time and energy to keep shit that I can't eat.
Yeah.
Like, I spent the time and energy to plant corn because I eat corn. Period. So what this is anti-human. Because that's the only thing it can be. But let's look at this. So they've got Paul Ehrlich. Paul Ehrlich is one of the guys. What's the problem with Paul Ehrlich? Let's look at this Reason article. Here we go. population doomster Paul Ehrlich's new forecast, quote, biological annihilation. Stanford biologist Paul Ehrlich has made a gaudy career of prophesizing imminent ecological doom. In the 1970s, quote, in the 1970s, hundreds of millions of people will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now, he declared in his 1968 manifesto, The Population Bomb. In the subsequent 50 years, as world population more than doubled, the proportion of chronically undernourished people in the world dropped from 33% in 1968 to 11% now. Ehrlich is now predicting population doom for the world's animals. The cause? Human overpopulation, naturally. Ehrlich and his colleagues, Gerardo Ceballos and Rodolfo Dirzo, described the allegedly impending, quote, biological annihilation of about a third of all vertebrate land species in a paper for the Proceedings for the National Academy of Science. Quote, the ultimate drivers of these immediate causes of biotic destruction are human overpopulation and continued population growth and overconsumption, especially by the rich, they argue. All signs point to ever more powerful assaults on biodiversity in the next 2 decades, painting a dismal picture of the future of life, including human life. The crisis supposedly results from, quote, the fiction that perpetual growth can occur on a finite planet. Meanwhile, quote, the window for effective action is very short, probably 2 or 3 decades at most. Ehrlich and his colleagues reached those conclusions by taking the International Union for the Conservation of Nature's data on populations of 27,600 species of mammals, birds, and reptiles and amphibians, and overlaying those figures on a grid of 22,000 plots measuring 10,000 square kilometers across all the continents. The goal is to identify areas where local populations of each species have been extirpated. They report that since 1900, nearly half of known vertebrate species, 32%, are decreasing. That is, they have decreased in population size and range. That basically means 68% are increasing. 32% of known vertebrate species are decreasing, even of the ones that they even of just the species that they found. 68% are increasing. More are increasing than decreasing. That's not an extinction.
So stupid. Where do they get this shit from?
Here, throw this up. He's been doing this since fucking 1970. Throw up this 1970 shit. Here it is. Redlands, California, October 6, 1970. Dr. Ehrlich, outspoken ecologist, to speak. Quote, giving aspirins to cancer victims is what Dr. Paul Ehrlich thinks of current proposals for pollution control. No real action has been taken to save the environment, he maintains. And it does need saving, Ehrlich predicts that the oceans will be as dead as Lake Erie in less than a decade. He said this in 1970. The DDT in our fatty tissues has reached levels high enough to cause brain damage and cirrhosis of the liver. America will be subject to water rationing by 1974 and food rationing by 1980. And yet we go back to this fucking guy. It's too much. I would advise everybody, throw up this Corbett thing. I put the link to this. It's so ridiculous, this shit. Especially if you're an environmentalist, could you please go and watch this? Please. Go watch this Corbett report where he goes through all the times that this has been going on. You're being fucking played, guys. Mm-hmm. Like, put it to the side. Put your ideology to the side. I know you want a beautiful Earth. I want a beautiful Earth too, man. But put the shit to the side about the alarmism. You're looking stupid. You're looking stupid, man. You've been getting played by the same people. It's the same guy. For 40 years.
Jesus
he's like
Christ.
they say it's a climate cult, but this is what cult leaders do.
Yeah.
They say the end of the world is coming. It's coming in 2 years, and then it doesn't come, and they're like, I read it wrong. I made a little mistake in Genesis chapter 4. This Hebrew, I read it wrong. It's coming in 15 years now. Then 15 years comes. There was a change with something happened over here. It's coming in another 10 years, and people stick around. And in the meantime, this dude's fucking everybody's wife, and like, it's like, dude.
Yeah. You're
Dr. Paul Ehrlich is fucking your wife, okay? Like, that's what's happening
You're
here.
seeing it actually right now with the fight.
Oh, the
Same
Mayweather fight. It's total hype. It's great. It's the Mayweather McGregor fight. That's it. Funny. What do we got? Let's yeah. I think we could go to Erik Voorhees. Go ahead and find him on there. I think he's E Voorhees. I didn't pull it up. Okay. But he should be there. See if he's ready. Let's go to break, and then we'll come back, do counter markets, and yeah, let's do it. Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. And of course, you can check us out every week streaming on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post. That's facebook.com/Activist Post. Before we get into our interview here in the second hour, I want to talk to you a little bit about counter markets. Well, more than ever, I am glad that we decided to put together this newsletter. Trends and Strategies for Maximum Freedom. I mean, this is an agorist newsletter. We are talking about the black and gray markets, and we go in depth on cryptocurrency. We're talking about all of these new developments of what I have come to call crypto savagery, the new culture that's underlying and really making a lot of moves. So as you have now these crypto markets seeing some massive corrections, I would advise go get the newest issue. We talk extensively about what's going on in the crypto markets with ICOs. And in the coming months, I think especially we're going to be talking about how you can profit from actually creating some real products of value and where the spaces are for that to happen. Actually, next month, I'm going to be writing about starting a Bitcoin ATM business and talking about the financials of that. So that should be very interesting. So countermarkets.com, go ahead, get your free issue. Just go and sign up. And if you pay with cryptocurrency, we're going to give you a huge discount over those people who are still paying in fiat. So with that in mind, for a talk about cryptocurrency, I would like to welcome our guest to the show, Erik Voorhees. Christian? Oh, is he there? Do we have him? Not yet. Well, just come back to us, bud. I think we may. No? No, Erik? Oh well. Let's talk about this story until he comes on. Maybe we'll get him in a. Oh yeah, we still have about 3 minutes. So let's do this. Let's talk about this. Since we were talking about crypto savagery, and so much of crypto savagery is what we do, which is the alternative media, and we support so much of the alternative media. Well, one thing that I wanted to say, which I found interesting, I put up a tweet, just random, and it's not like I expected it to be anything meaningful. Just praising Dave Rubin. I don't know if you watched the Rubin Report at all, but it's definitely worth a watch, especially lately. Is he there? Ready? Let's do it. We'll talk about this after. We'll remind me to get back on the whole Rubin Report thing.
Okay.
Because it's important. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to our guest, Erik Voorhees. Erik Voorhees is an American Panamanian startup founder, best known as the creator and CEO of Shapeshift.io. He is co-founder of the Bitcoin company Coinapult, worked as director of marketing at BitInstant, and was founder and partial owner of the Bitcoin gambling website Satoshi Dice. Voorhees believes the current monetary system has serious systemic problems with counterparty risk, that the Federal Reserve System is fraudulent, and advocates the separation of money and state. He keeps his assets and finances in Bitcoin and is an outspoken opponent of taxation. Erik Voorhees, welcome to the Vin Armani Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I am so glad that you are on. We talk about cryptocurrency quite a bit on this show, but so much of the focus seems to be lately on speculation and a lot of new people entering into this space, speculating. You are one of the people who I respect in this space primarily because you got in with a strong sort of ideological base. You've maintained that. You've certainly done well financially, and certainly with Shapeshift and now with Prism, what we'll talk about, you've been somebody who's actually created some products and services that really add value and that make people's lives a lot better, people who are participating in this space. This is not a technical show. I know that often people want technical questions to be asked to you or predictive questions about where the market's going to go. We'll do that a little bit with the Prism, but what I'm really interested in is where was the point where you decided, okay, this cryptocurrency thing, and I'm assuming it was probably Bitcoin at that point, this is what I'm going to be dedicating all of my life to. And what did you see fundamentally that made you decide I'm going all in with this thing?
Yeah, good question. So basically after college, I had moved to Dubai, and it was the start of 2008. And so later that year, of course, the global financial crisis happened. And I watched with fascination as the entire world's financial system fell apart. And, kind of being in a different country and watching it from afar gave me a different, at least psychological perspective on it. And I started getting really interested in how money worked and how banking worked and how central banking worked. And I came to the conclusion pretty quickly that the problem was that money was being centrally planned and controlled. And I think anyone that grows up in the U.S. or in a market economy, allegedly market economy, likes to make fun of like the Soviet Union when they were communists for trying to centrally plan prices and products. And yet, the most important product in an economy is money, and the U.S. centrally plans and controls it. So I felt like that was something that really was like the systemic problem of the market, and I didn't know what to do about it. I just felt like that was a big thing that needs to get fixed someday. And then a couple years later, I come across Bitcoin from a Facebook post, and I tried it out, and I could move any amount of money anywhere instantly. So I was like, wow, this is really useful. And then as I learned that it was decentralized, meaning no central party, I realized it couldn't be shut down. So logic would then imply if this thing is better than the current alternatives, and if it can't be shut down, it's going to keep growing and growing and growing, and ultimately take over all of finance. And so ever since then, I have been fully ready to help make this happen, and it's growing very fast at this point. So it's been fun to see.
So you actually came in. I mean, what was this, about 2010 or so that we're talking about, when you decided?
2011.
2011, that you decided, yeah, this is the move that I'm going to make. It's so amazing to think that it's such a short period of time, and this thing, maybe it's because so many of us are inside of it, but it does feel like it's taking over. What was your initial, or when was it that you thought? Because I was talking with Christian, my co-host here, about the fact that when Shapeshift first came out, I was a little incredulous, because that was still a time when the alts were not really all that important. These other coins were not that important, and I'm like, okay, here's this guy. He can, I can move between all these different currencies, but I mean, why do I need to move between all these currencies, right? I guess
think a lot of people thought I was crazy.
Yeah. What made you decide to do this crazy thing that is now one of the key utilities in this whole space?
Well, so as Wayne Gretzky once said, that to be a good hockey player, you don't go to where the puck is, you go to where the puck is going, right? This is what led me to Bitcoin in the first place. And as I started realizing that this blockchain technology and tokens was going to start branching out in many different directions, it became obvious that the industry needed a frictionless way to convert any digital asset into any other. And in early 2014, when I started Shapeshift, that only meant a couple, like Dogecoin and Litecoin, and it was pretty inconsequential. But the industry was moving very much in the direction of many tokens. And so I think that's been borne out.
So you have now added, you've added quite a few Ethereum tokens as well onto the Shapeshift platform. I'm interested to get your thoughts, and I know that from a speculative standpoint, a lot of that for Shapeshift doesn't really matter, because you guys are taking a fee on the spot price no matter where it's at. But what is your impression when you look around at what's happening with these ICOs? I'm interested to get your thoughts as somebody who is creating businesses that actually do things. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on these businesses that are being created as the next. I've heard everything from the next decentralized VR thing to some. It's just they're wild. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what this whole thing means.
Yeah, so token sales are a crazy phenomenon, first of all. And like most startups or most new projects or most experiments, most of these things will fail. And that's true in any industry, right? Like most new ideas, most new projects fail. The fact that most of them will fail doesn't mean that they are scams, and it doesn't mean that the model of token sales is illegitimate. It just means that token sales amplify it because they make it so much easier to raise money and to raise a vast amount of money. So what we'll end up seeing is projects that would never have otherwise been funded will get funded more easily, and that'll be good and bad. There will be some projects that will change the world, and they wouldn't have happened other than that token sales were possible. And there will be a lot of projects that it will get funded and shouldn't have been funded in the first place because they'll fail. But there's no way to know that until hindsight, and that's true of any kind of venture.
So, but clearly the difference with this is that, in traditional funding, even up until the tech boom and after, you had, even if we're talking about the real estate boom, the people who have been putting money in as investors traditionally have either been institutional investors, or even if they're angel investors, they're to some degree probably a little bit evolved in terms of their thinking, and they know, okay, yeah, they realize this may fail. I need to put my money into 10 projects in order to have one, hopefully, that pays off. In this case, though, I think for the first time, I'm seeing a lot of amateur investors, I guess if you want to call them that. I'm seeing a lot of people who feel like this is a chance to get rich, and there's no barrier to entry for them, where, buying derivatives, there's a barrier to entry, you know what I mean? But a token sale, there's no barrier to entry. What do you think that means for these people who are quick on the uptake for cryptocurrencies, not yet as the product as you describe, but are at least have it in their mind? What do you think that's going to mean for these people if they start losing money, which you say most of them are going to fail? What do you think that means for these people?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money, but that's because they should have been more careful with their money, and they should have invested more carefully, and that's going to be true in every market. A good analogy really is like what the internet did to publishing, and when blogs came out. Everyone now can make a blog or a podcast and get their views out to everyone in the world. So the barrier to entry is very low. Does that mean that every blog out there is a success, or that every person's opinions are valuable and helpful? No. Like, most blogs in the world are total crap.
Right.
Most podcasts are total crap. There's not value there. But the ability for anyone to try, the ability for anyone to participate and have a chance at succeeding is made much better by the barrier being lower. And this is true in token sales as well, right? So most of these people that are investing in token sales, they will probably fail and they will lose money. But it also allows, some 15-year-old kid in Kenya who has no access to financial markets, if he knows his stuff and if he learns about the industry and if he has a knack for this, he can actually become very wealthy now and would not have been able to before this technology. So it's just empowering, right? And empowering will be used for good and for bad.
So this is a huge point, and it's something that I think talking about blogs gets us to your blog. You're one of the few thought leaders who I think certainly, even the title of your blog, Money and State, and the idea that you got into this for ideological reasons. You're one of the few sort of very, very out there libertarian-minded people. Can you explain to us what it means, this, just in a little more detail, about the separation of money and state, that phrase, and also if you could get into a little bit more. I'm sure people, you said it in passing, but I'm sure people were like, what? When you said money is the primary product in the market, a lot of people don't think about money as a product. Can you talk to us about those two concepts? What is the separation of money and state, and why is that important?
Yeah, so I think most people, when they're in grade school, they learn about how it was an important development in society for church and state to become separate, where before that was the case, religion was the government to a large extent, and religious beliefs, you could not have your own religious beliefs. They sort of were dictated and centrally planned by the region that you were in. And today everyone believes that it's very good that church and state are separate things, regardless of whether you're religious or not. Most people think that that's good, that those things are not paired together. And yet something even more important than religion, money, which affects everyone's lives, that is still centrally planned by the state. There's no reason that it should be, And the separation of money and state, I think, will be the great achievement of cryptocurrency. That its ultimate purpose is to separate money and state, not by getting enough people to vote on it, because that will never happen, but just by providing an alternative in the marketplace, and for that alternative to win over time. So that's what I mean by the separation of church and state. It's important for the very same reason that the separation of church and state is important. And hopefully, school children some generations from now will look back on the separation of money and state just as fondly as the separation of church and state. To your other question about money being a product, yeah, I think this is something that's a little counterintuitive for people. But if you understand how money originates, it originates essentially from barter, where if you take any group of people, they will start trading with each other over time, and they will start trading for they'll barter with each other, and they will barter eventually for things that they know other people will barter for. So even if they don't want the cow, they will barter for a cow because they know someone else will want it. And so what you get when that process plays out is a small group of commodities that end up becoming widely traded. And all money is the name that we assign to the most popularly traded item. So in that context, money is just a good. It's just the name we give to the most popular good. And this was more obvious when it was gold or precious metals, but now that it's sort of this abstract fiat nonsense, people don't think of it that way. But really, it's just a product, right? So when you're buying things with money, you're just bartering the money for the thing you're buying, and the person selling that thing to you is bartering that thing for your money. So that's really where that term comes from. And if it's not wise for a government to centrally plan, the production of shoes in a market economy, it is similarly unwise for the government to plan the production of money.
That's huge. I'd like to expand on that a little bit, because this is something that I've been speaking with, whenever I go to libertarian conferences or crypto conferences, or sit down and speak with people in this space. You have the maximalists for sure. You have the Bitcoin maximalists. You have the Ethereum maximalists. Well, one idea that I'd like to get your thoughts on as we talk about and expand this idea of the progression of the product of money with cryptocurrency in general. You have, certainly with Shapeshift, as you say, you started with just a few coins. You've been adding more and more and more. Obviously, you guys are not interested in picking winners and losers. You're interested in creating a frictionless way for the market to sort of figure that out itself. And by facilitating that, you make some money doing it, and I think that's awesome. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because something that I try to bring up to people is there's very little barrier to entry for new cryptocurrencies to come. I mean, there's a technical barrier in terms of the people actually have to get it there, and there's a marketing barrier, certainly. But compared to, say, state money, there's virtually no barrier to entry for somebody introducing new cryptocurrency. And as someone who, in this short period of time, has personally seen the value of a whole lot of new altcoins come up to the point where you've added them onto your platform, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on, I've been a developer for 20 years now, and we're in the early days. I'm used to being in the early days of certain technologies, and I know that the first technologies that come to market are rarely the ones that get picked up. It's like you go 10 years back, and the major market share was BlackBerry, and there was no Android phone in the smartphone space. I'm interested to hear your thoughts with all of the things going on politically and otherwise, particularly with the big two, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Do you feel that those are going to be the ones that stick around, or do you think that there is a lot of space for other coins that we have not even heard of at this point to come along and solve these problems and get picked up?
Yeah, so first important point on that is that the term cryptocurrency, I think, was really premature. So when Bitcoin came out, everyone thought originally of it as a money, which it can be used for that. But a lot of tokens and a lot of blockchains are going to be used for things that are not currency per se. So I like to use the term digital asset, right? Because there some digital assets will be cryptocurrencies, but there will be a lot of digital assets and tokens that are not currencies at all. So I think there's room for millions of different tokens representing all forms of different types of value. and the industry is just going to branch off in many directions. I don't think that the world needs 1,000 cryptocurrencies, because currency is sort of like a unit of measurement, really, and just as it's not that helpful to have many different kinds of units of measurement, it doesn't help to have many different kinds of money or currency. But there will be many kinds of tokens, and so that's a distinction I think that the industry is starting to understand a little bit better. Bitcoin is still by far the most likely to win that race, although it's been stumbling recently with some of the scaling debate stuff. But so far it's still the most likely, and I think there's a lot of room for other technologies to exist alongside. I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are complements to each other. The fact that each exists has made the other better. So I really don't see it as like a fixed pie situation.
Okay, let's talk about, I'd like to walk through this Prism project. Like I said, this is not necessarily a financial show, and it's not necessarily a crypto show, as it were. So I'd like to walk through this incredibly interesting project, and I think it's groundbreaking for a lot of people. So Prism, could you describe for us what Prism is in a nutshell? And could you tell us why, or what the evolution of this was for you in your own consciousness, coming to a place where you realize, okay, this is something that is going to be necessary?
Yeah, so Prism is a way to get exposure to a basket or a portfolio of digital assets. So right now, if you have $10,000 and you want to put that money into different crypto assets because you like the sector, you basically have two ways to do that. You can either download a whole bunch of different wallets and blockchains and synchronize them all and manage all the private keys, which can be done safely if you know what you're doing, but it's also a lot of work and hassle, especially if you want to change the allocation a week or a month later. So you can do that, or what most people do, they just leave all the money at an exchange and they buy the coins they want and they leave all those coins at the exchange, which is easier, but which, as we know, is not safe, not wise to leave assets long-term with a custodian. So that's sort of been the state of the art, and it's kind of tragic. And we wanted to basically make a way for people to gain a portfolio without having to trust a counterparty. So Prism allows someone to gain a portfolio of digital assets in any allocation they want and in any size they want without having to trust someone. So it's built on Ethereum. It uses smart contracts, and essentially you create a smart contract that tracks the value of the basket of assets that you want. And then regardless of what happens to Shapeshift or what we do as people at Shapeshift, the Prism smart contract operates upon the rules of the code, and so that I think dramatically improves the safety and security for people that want to use it, and it's far more easy than downloading a bunch of wallets.
The disruptive ability of this idea, I think this is going to be one that really gets people's attention as it starts moving along, because it certainly is. It's a threat to the powers that be. I mean, we have to be honest about that. I mean, the people who control the markets as they currently are, this basically becomes an uncontrollable or unregulatable exchange, I guess. I guess we could say that. I'm interested just to break off for a moment, just to talk about regulation a little bit, because that's something that's coming up. I'm one who, as I follow the news of different governments wanting to regulate the blockchain, it seems very, quite frankly, it just seems impossible. It seems like maybe you can do some punitive action where you can punish some people if you find them with wallets. But what are your thoughts on where the future of this is going in terms of both attempts and also, is there even any possibility, do you see a chink in the armor in terms of regulation where states could step in and start even regulating any of this?
So yeah, any government can regulate anything, right? All they have to do is write a piece of paper with a bunch of rules on it,
right? Just
like they've regulated drugs, right? The question is, do those regulations actually change behavior, and do they actually have the effect that the regulators want? And in crypto, it's by far its most powerful feature is that it cannot be controlled by any person or group of people. So regulators can influence how crypto evolves. Regulations can definitely change some people's behavior, but they don't have direct control over it like they would over the banking system. So a lot of regulations in the crypto world are kind of going to be like pushing on a string, right? You can kind of affect the location and shape of the string, but you can't really get the string to go where you want if you're pushing on it. And that's fantastic. Thank goodness now that there's actually a free market, unmolestable form of money that a bunch of bureaucrats can't control. They will absolutely try to control it, and they can certainly put individual people in jail. They can close down specific companies. But this is a global phenomenon, very diverse. It cannot be stopped at all, and the value that it brings to humans, i.e. the ability to frictionlessly move value anywhere in the world instantly at near zero cost, that can't be, you can't like close that up and take that away from the world. Now that it's here, larger and larger groups of people will start using that, just like the internet, right? You couldn't take the internet away from people now that they have it. You can't take crypto away from people now that they have it. It's open source, anyone can create it, anyone can send it around the world. So that's ultimately why I got involved. I mean, it is going to take over finance around the world, and I don't know if it'll take 5 more years or 20 more years, but it's going to happen.
So when you talk about the value, I guess the value that the state and banks in collusion, if they've given any value to, and I mean, clearly they've evolved the culture over the last 200 years, but if they are giving any value to people today where people are still grasping and holding on, I think it's in the realm of trust, right? That people know, or they think, I put my money into Bank of America, and because it's FDIC insured, if the bank gets robbed, the government will make sure that I get my money, and that's the collusion, and that the government will protect the dollar, and they'll go to war for petrodollars, and they'll do all this to try to keep the value of my dollar up. And we're talking about a trustless, frictionless system for trading, which is potentially a whole lot of money. You're somebody who has built a company that, the first couple times I think somebody uses Shapeshift for any significant amount of money, there is that little tinge of, am I going to lose this money right now? And is the other currency going to come out on the other end? I know this is something that you've had to deal with. What is your sort of advice? What is your mantra? What is your mindset when it comes to creating products and services in this space that people can trust? Because clearly Shapeshift works and people can trust it. But look, like with the thing with Ethereum, there was a thing with Ethereum recently. I know that I got involved in it where the market was moving in a strange way, and I think it was the Ethereum payments were delayed a little bit. You guys were super. You were out there. You were communicating. What are the things that you have adopted as a company to keep trust high in a trustless environment?
Yeah, so you're kind of looking at it backwards. So
Okay.
we don't want people to trust us. We want people to not have to trust us. And this is a principle that I've come to love about Bitcoin. What it does for people is it allows people that do not trust each other to exchange with each other. And this is something that in the site that I was running, Satoshi Dice, which was the gambling site, its magic was that people did not have to trust it. You could do the gambling. You could see the results, and then you could verify them mathematically that they were the correct odds and that the outcome was correct. So you did not have to trust. With Shapeshift, we wanted to move away from this model where people have to trust exchanges that are holding their funds. So we don't hold funds. We don't have tens of millions or $1 billion on deposit that could just vanish if we ran off with it or if we got hacked or something. So people don't really need to trust us. And with our model, hopefully someone who doesn't trust us can run through the game theory of, okay, if I send in Bitcoin for Litecoin, Shapeshift is holding that Bitcoin for a moment, right, for seconds or a couple minutes while that transfer happens. What's the likelihood that they will either steal that or run off, or that something bad will happen? Because that window is so small, there's no possible situation in where it would be profitable for us to scam anyone. And because of that, we don't scam people, right? Like, we're not going to scam people because we're ethical, but even if someone doesn't know who we are, they should be able to run through that game theory and realize that there's no possible point for Shapeshift to ever hold or steal anyone's money, because it has so little at any given time. So we call that basically protection by design. It's to build a service that you do not have to put trust in, because it works in a way that you can have assurance without trusting that it'll work.
There are lots of spaces still left to be grabbed. I mean, almost every space at this point is left to be grabbed in terms of the blockchain world and in terms of decentralizing. You guys are obviously going after the very important sort of first step of making that most important product, money, making that frictionless and available. Where are the other spaces? Are there any other spaces that you in particular have found intriguing, or that you think are ripe for a blockchain takeover? And I'm talking about a decentralized blockchain takeover, because obviously every industry, every established industry, all you hear is blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. They want to do a private blockchain, this and that. Where is the space that you feel that entrepreneurs who believe in libertarian values, or who see this thing going in the place that you see it going, are there any other spaces besides finance that you feel like right now are ripe for that?
Yeah, so I think anyone trying to answer that question should look at tokens. Mm-hmm. And tokens really are going to be where all the advancement happens. Figuring out ways to assign value to tokens for things that didn't have value before. So a great example is what these ICOs are doing, where they are tokenizing, I'll use the word equity, even though that's not quite right, mm-hmm. tokenizing equity in a project. Doing that has demonstrated how powerful this technology is. People will tokenize like video game items, right? So you can imagine World of Warcraft, if all the swords and shields and spells in that game were tokenized, and you could actually possess them and hold them and see how many existed, and not even the company behind the game could manipulate those items or destroy them or anything. That gives like a certain visceral realness to things that were previously virtual. Bitcoin did that with money. These ICOs are doing that with equity, and other people will find interesting things to do with tokens. And I think within 10 years, the value of token assets in the world will be greater than the value of today's analog financial assets. And that means tokens will represent financial assets that exist today, but in tokenized form. And they will also represent all sorts of new types of value that couldn't have existed before tokens, in the same way that the internet replaced a lot of media that existed before, but it's also created wholly new types of media that couldn't exist before the internet. So look at tokens, figure out what you can do with tokens and what can be ascribed as value into tokens, and you will find the opportunities.
So I want to talk, so as we go out into the future a little bit, and we are certainly talking about taking that trust product away from the state. And if you don't need to trust the state, then maybe you don't need the state. I think that these are all logical progressions, and that's how the separation of money and state happens, as you say, not through voting it in, but through actually just doing some things, and the state becomes unnecessary. As you look out now on I want to talk about the international aspect of all of this, or maybe we don't even use the term international. Maybe we use the term global, because that's really what we're talking about, right? Because we're not even talking about nations. As you clearly, you are servicing people who are making exchanges from all over the world, and that's going to happen probably even more so with greater volume on this Prism platform. As you go around and you interact with the international community of crypto users, of the people who are thought leaders in this space, who are all over. I mean, you're Panamanian as well, right? You have Panamanian citizenship, right? Is that right?
I don't. I wish.
Okay.
I wish I did.
Okay.
I'm unfortunately only American citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why that was. I don't know why I have that in your. I don't know why I have that in your bio. But but as you go around and as you see the international community, the global community of people, are there? We talk a lot on this show about this idea of a sort of emergent culture. And I think cryptocurrency is clearly a part of that, that is not understood at all and really has no relationship in many ways to the old culture in terms of the way that we think. Are there some things that are running through the community? I don't know whether I want to say personality traits, but do you see a culture developing, and do you see some cultural markers of things that are believed either ideologically or things that are just practiced as you go around that cryptocurrency itself, or perhaps that has spread globally and that has gotten people to adopt cryptocurrency? Do you understand kind of the question that I'm asking? Are you seeing this culture?
Yeah. So early days of Bitcoin. Obviously, almost everyone involved was very much libertarian, and before it had really proven itself in the business world, and before the financial interests of the world had gotten involved, people were involved in it for ideological reasons. And so most people in the industry were very similar in their viewpoints. As the industry has grown, larger and larger swaths of people are getting involved, and so the percentage who are, extreme libertarian types like myself is proportionately less, but that's fine. That just means that the tent is getting bigger, and that was inevitable, and that's how it has to work anyway. I think one sort of cultural trait that crypto will give to the world is the ability to not have to trust someone in order to do an economic exchange with them. So this is really important in a world where most people are strangers to each other, and someone in one country will interact maybe one time and on some small level with someone in another country. You don't have the time to establish trust or a relationship. And so being able to do business with someone that you don't trust or that you don't know whether you can trust is a really important advancement for human society. I think that's what crypto is going to bring. Is that ability to people.
I want to explore that for a minute, because that's a very, very interesting point that I guess I hadn't really fully fleshed out in my own mind. Do you think that this is going to not? What do you think that does for cultural? It's hard right now. That there's politically, the world is a very, very divided and divisive place. And I think you bring up a good point that a lot of the arguments that people have, particularly the nationalists have, is this idea that, well, I can trust people inside my culture because they share my cultural values. Therefore, there's huge value in me only interacting with people in my culture, the maximum amount of trust. A homogenous culture is less violent, and all of this. What do you think this means? Because now we're talking about a different paradigm, right? We're not talking about a paradigm of you can trust everybody. We're talking about a paradigm of trusting everybody is not even necessary. How do you think that stands to change the political landscape? Or, I mean, is that something that you've spent any time thinking about?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. I think people, as they don't need to trust each other, maybe will start to become, ironically, more friendly with each other, to the extent that you don't have to build up this trust and thus start with a position of suspicion. Perhaps that means people can be more open and friendly with each other from the start, because they know that, if you're doing business with someone in some other country, you know that they can't defraud you in their transaction. That is going to remove some of your skepticism and cynicism about that person. So hopefully, and with a little bit of irony, this might bring disparate peoples together more, and people will actually be more open to each other. That, maybe I'm being totally naive about that, but that's my hope.
I mean, I think that it's a good point, and I think it's worthy of exploring. It's certainly I'll be thinking about that idea all day, because I guess I hadn't really thought about it on that level. I want to just talk a little more about Prism in terms of just logistics of release, people finding out more. What do we got in terms of timeline?
Yeah, so Prism we put up in a private beta at Consensus, which was 2 months ago. So right now it's invite only. You can sign up to be invited at prism.exchange, prism.exchange. That's the URL. And so we have a wait list there, and we're just kind of trickling people in. We wanted to take it really slow because this is very sort of cutting edge technology that we're working with. Smart contracts as a field is very, very young. So I'm not sure when it will move into an open beta and a full production launch. But if you're interested in it, get on that list, and you'll get in sooner than other people. So that's the current plan.
Excellent. Speaking of that, of being cutting edge, I've really been advising, I come from a software development background myself, and I've really been advising people that if ever there was a good time as either a developer to polish up your skills on whether it's Solidity or one of the other smart contract languages, as you've gone out and started looking for talent, how do you feel the talent pool is in terms of being able to find people to build these products? How much space is there, and how much demand is there for good engineers and developers in this space?
Yeah, I think blockchain expertise and certainly Solidity and smart contract expertise are going to be a huge field that's in demand over the next 10 or 20 years. So if I'm not an engineer, for those of your listeners who are, if you want something to focus your career on and to focus your expertise on, I think that's a great place. Blockchains generally, and Solidity and smart contracts specifically. Now, usually, as long as someone's a really good engineer, they can learn the crypto stuff, within a couple weeks or a month. It's really hard to teach someone who is a crypto expert or, understands blockchains, how to teach them to be an engineer. It takes much longer, right? So, hopefully the labor pool for these types of skills will grow rapidly, because there's going to be an immense amount of companies all over the world building this kind of technology. It's going to be a very macro trend and phenomenon for the next decade at least.
So that's very, very hopeful for those people who are worried about losing their jobs and all of this because of things getting automated. There's very, very hopeful. What about new additions to Shapeshift? Is there anything exciting that people should be on the lookout for that you are really stoked about going on over there?
Yeah, there's two. Well, we have another huge other new project that we haven't announced yet, called Arbiter. And we haven't given any details about that, so I won't spill them here. But that's on the horizon. And then we have another really cool announcement that we will be making in about 3 weeks. So just follow our Twitter account or sign up for our newsletter if you want to stay in touch about these things. Shapeshift's been growing really fast, and it's been exciting to see this industry kind of expand out in these various directions. I think other than this short-term Bitcoin scaling issue, the industry is extremely healthy, and I've said this on almost every interview ever, but I'm more bullish than I've ever been on this stuff. I think every day that goes by, it's proving itself to be to have staying power, and to just pulling in more and more people from different disciplines, different industries, and it's a really exciting thing to watch. It's the kind of success and growth that Bitcoin and crypto is having today is what we all sort of fantasized about in 2011, and it's happening. So sometimes I have to remind myself to sit back and enjoy this as it happens.
Well, you should enjoy it. Thank you for everything that you've done and that you continue to do. And of course, I don't even need to wish you continued success, because clearly it's already. I think that's going to be a foregone conclusion. But thank you for speaking out and for having for keeping the philosophy front and center with it, because it is necessary. But thank you very much for being on the show, Erik Voorhees, CEO of Shapeshift.io, and we will be looking out for all of the upcoming projects. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can get you back on again in the future.
I would love to. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks so much.
Cheers.
All right, cheers. So, that every single interview, food for thought.
Yeah.
Such an interesting idea. The biggest argument right now among the nationalist types is, I don't like those people of that other culture, those immigrants, those Muslims, all that. I don't like those people because I don't know their culture. We have different cultures. I can't trust them. I want a homogenous culture because I can trust everybody in that culture. Right? They will hold my values. And the whole thing about them holding your values is primarily financial, because you know that they're going to do business in the way that you do business. They're going to relate to the world. But when you have a situation where that's not important, because you both trust the machine, the code is law.
It's great. I mean, that's like the biggest hurdle in business is building trust.
It's huge.
And one of the things that, and I actually learned this from you, one of the things that kind of removes that barrier is when you take out the trust factor by putting your skin in the game.
That's it.
In other words, you make it an easy sell instead of a hard sell. Here's my service, it costs $500. No, I'll show you what I can do first.
Right.
And
Right.
provide the value, and then we can talk later. And that's kind of what Shapeshift does. It's great.
I mean, Shapeshift is it's so funny that, I mean, look, and even he admits it, that it's like, yeah, this crazy idea that now it's necessary. It's built into wallets now. Like, it's built into my Jax wallet, Shapeshift. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's this utility that it's like you have to have it. You absolutely have to use it. And it's interesting to talk with somebody who has put their money where their mouth is on a number of projects. Mm-hmm. These are continuing on, and the idea that, I mean, this is true agorism right here. It's this idea that, look, it's not that I badly want money and state to be separated because of ideological reasons. It's that, hey, this is just a better idea.
Yeah.
Like, separating money from state is going to give to us the benefits that, for instance, the separation of church and state was able to give to our culture. Like, it's really, that's the most important way of looking at this, is to see this is coming. This is the way that the wind is blowing. Get on board.
Yep.
So let's talk about the way that the wind is blowing. We can end this out. We have one last interesting story. As the crypto savages go trustless, those who have said trust us are consolidating their power. As the alternative media goes out and seeks to decentralize, to pull in, we do our show, other people do their show, we converge at certain points, and at other points we're just going in another direction because we're interested in that and we have expertise in something else. And that's the way that you get the maximum amount of information, just like blockchain technology, just like it's a free market of ideas, just like a free market in currency, in money, in digital assets. But what we have is this very interesting CBS BBC story. If you want to throw that up there, Christian. This is from The Hill. CBS News, BBC announce editorial and news gathering partnership. CBS News on Tuesday announced a new, quote, editorial and news gathering relationship with BBC News, quote, that will significantly enhance the global reporting capabilities of both organizations, the network said in a joint statement. CBS News is completely committed to original reporting around the world, a commitment clearly shared by the BBC, said CBS News President David Rhodes. There's no better partner to strengthen and extend our global coverage than BBC News. I look forward to working with James Harding as we increase the capabilities of both organizations. Quote, there's never been a more important time for smart, courageous coverage of what's happening in the world, said BBC Director of News and Current Affairs James Harding. This new partnership between the BBC and CBS News is designed to bring our audiences, wherever you live, whatever your point of view, news that is reliable, original, and illuminating. Quote, our ambition is to deliver the best in international reporting on television. We're really looking forward to working together. Sharing of content between CBS News, headquartered in New York, and BBC News, headquartered in London, will begin immediately. Quote, additional news gathering components will be rolled out in the coming months, according to the announcement. CBS and the BBC have worked together in the past, most notably when iconic reporter Edward R. Murrow of CBS News broadcast many of his World War II reports from the BBC's London headquarters. Now, I think that last sentence is the most important sentence in the whole thing. The most notable time when CBS and the BBC worked together was when Edward R. Murrow was broadcasting his World War II reports from the BBC's London headquarters. When Edward R. Murrow was broadcasting Allied propaganda, that's what they're going with. War propaganda.
Shit.
Now, this is not a good sign.
Mm-mm.
First off, what many people, well, you should know, the BBC is a state organization. Mm-hmm. The BBC is state-owned and run. It's a state-run channel. Series, I guess you call it a network? It's a series of channels, television and radio. It's government owned and controlled. They have a board of governors that is government appointed. And so you've got it's British propaganda. And the BBC World Service is British propaganda. So you've got British propaganda, and you've got CBS News sharing in that. And that's supposed to deliver us reliable, original, innovative programming. And then they wonder why people are moving away. They wonder why there's a demand for independent media. They're creating the demand.
Yep.
It's like, instead of looking, it's dogmatic and it's ideological, because you would think they've got the money. Why not look out and be like, hey, what is it that people are seeing in these other outlets? Why are people going to independent media for their news? Like, why are people taking that extra step and going to independent media for their news? And it's like, it's not fucking stylistic just because you're like, okay, get the producers from Vice to do this. No, it's not the style, man. It's the fucking substance.
Yeah.
It's the content. It's the shit that you guys are not covering because you're fake news, and you have to be fake news because now you're government. They're doubling down. They're doubling down, man. Instead of saying, hey, maybe we could switch this up, you know? There was Dave Rubin, I'm telling you, man, his last several shows
I gotta check that out.
His last several shows have been good, but the show before last was Eric Weinstein, the professor. But he was talking about that the only way that, like, the media and all these institutions can save themselves. It was funny because it was like they were totally Eric from Activist Post was like, dude, they're talking about their crypto savages, and I was like, yes, they totally are, right? So it's like he's talking about the only way they can save themselves is to basically do, I love this term, deep Potemkinization. So the Potemkin village was, the Tsar was traveling around Russia, and this dude Potemkin, who was a advisor to the Tsar, had these fake actors. And so it was like a famine or something. The Tsar was traveling down the river. I think of the Volga River, was traveling down the river, and this dude Potemkin would throw up these villages, like, you seen in Blazing Saddles where they make like the fake village? Like, he would make these fake villages along the way, and then the Tsar would tour with all these like happy actors and stuff. And it says Potemkin Village. It's fake. So it's like, if the New York Times is all the news that's fit to print, like, maybe it should start acting like that. Instead of it being a lie, it needs to like start believing its own hype and doing it. That's the only way they can save themselves. They need to become a Potemkin Village of themselves, but they're not. It's like, instead of decentralizing, they're centralizing. And every step that they take to centralize, they leave this huge vacuum. And that's just going to be filled by the independent media where it's frictionless, there's no barrier to entry. This is what's coming. This is what crypto savagery means. This is what living inside of that culture and seeing it coming is, to know they are pulling themselves back into their bases. This is like what happens in guerrilla warfare. Eventually, the colonizers can only be in their little bases. Like the U.S. in Iraq can only be in the green zone. Eventually, that always happens. If you read The War of the Flea, like the author Mark Tabor is saying, this is how it happens. This is the economics of guerrilla warfare.
Crazy.
There's a guerrilla war going on. You've got the buy Bitcoin guy flashing the sign behind Janet Yellen in the Fed meeting. And by the way, over $15,000 at the last time I read have been sent to his Bitcoin address for doing that. So we're being rewarded for crypto savagery. That's the thing. This is a chance to get rich in the revolution. This is the chance.
This is an incredible time.
If you're willing to pick, you heard Erik say it right there, man. Go out and learn Solidity. Go out and learn Solidity. There's money to be made. And I'm telling you, as a developer, man, look, go take some classes at IronYard. Learn JavaScript. If you learn JavaScript, you can learn Solidity. It's based on JavaScript. Go spend a couple grand, go do that, and it's a 6-figure gig for the rest of your career, man. 10 or 20 years.
Wow. It's
right fucking there. You don't need no education, and believe me, it's not that hard. I mean, I'm a self-taught developer, and I mean, I've been around it for a long time, but I taught myself actually to code like 6 months. And I know plenty of people who have done the same. So it's like, now's a huge opportunity. A huge opportunity. Just think, all these people who lost money on this Bitcoin fall could have taken that money and learned how to code. That's what people need to start thinking about, creating some value. Look to Erik Voorhees, who's somebody who's, look, he's creating value, value, value. He's not sitting here. Do we talk about Bitcoin price?
No.
Does he
Yeah,
care?
exactly. No,
Does he
not at all.
fucking care?
Not at all.
It doesn't matter.
No.
Because the price is not what's important. It's a product. You make the product. He's making a product. He's making services around the most important product, which is money. You don't need to trade the product. You make the service that makes the trading happen. That's where it's at. So, this is...
Great.
I think we're good, man. As you can see, but you know what? This worked out way better today with this thing.
Yeah, this thing's been
Way better. I'm happy with the handkerchiefs, although this is probably going to need a rinse off, and then it's going to be thrown on my head as a cold. So, dude, yeah, I guess that's we can end out the show.
Yeah, great show.
All right. Thank you for today. Say goodbye to the people. Well, I really want to thank our guest, Erik Voorhees, a real leader in not just the space of cryptocurrency, but I'm going to say he is absolutely the embodiment of the crypto savage, whether he knows it or not. So the new culture is coming. It's definitely upon us. This is the time. This is an exciting, exciting time to be alive. And I'm glad to get to be here and share it with you and to sort of walk with you on this path towards more crypto savagery. And just to let you know, as a sort of a preview, my new book, Self-Ownership, The Foundation of Property and Morality, where in the last essay in that book is where I actually coined the word crypto savage. That's going to be out very, very soon. The cover design is in. The manuscript has been formatted for print. And yeah, it's getting ready for release. The audiobook is being recorded. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to actually be offering it, I think, just for cryptocurrency. And I might do something special where it's like a signed book and a private audiobook stream. And I might even do proofs. So I might do a pre-first edition, but it's going to be all in cryptocurrency only to purchase those. So stay on the lookout for that. Stay on the lookout for us next week. But in the meantime, if you want to check this out on archive, you can go to youtube.com/Vin Armani. Well, actually, go to vinarmani.com. We've got all of the videos there. The newly revamped site with all of the content searchable and playable, linkable, and shareable. If you want to check out just the audio podcast, you can do that on iTunes and Stitcher. And you can check us out again next week. Another great guest next week, Monday, 10 a.m. Until then, stay free.